Hello everyone, agus Kid Fulcha. Agus Cowilmid Inu. Today we're here in front of Artane, in what was Artane Industrial School, one of the most infamous of all the industrial schools in Ireland. And I have with me here Felix O'Neill, who's going to tell us about how he spent the first 18 years of his life in various industrial schools. Felix, you're very welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Felix, I want to put you through the first three places you were in.
Yes.
You were born in St. Patrick's,
On the
Mother and Baby on the Navan Road in Dublin.
Yes.
Now, and you spent 4.5 years there. Can I ask you, first of all, why was your mother there? I know she was pregnant outside of marriage, yes, but was she brought in there by her family or by a priest, or did she refer herself in?
By the local parish priest of Stradbally, County Waterford.
And she was forced in there?
She was forced in there.
And the shame and the stigma attached to that?
Yes.
Okay.
Even though my father wanted to marry, and we have documentation to support this, sadly my father died 2 years later after my birth. But the nuns wouldn't allow, because I was born out of wedlock.
Out of wedlock, so they wouldn't allow you to be.
She wouldn't, yeah. Mum, by the way, wasn't a teenager. My mum was 38 when she had me.
Okay.
But that her life was destroyed after that.
Of course. Felix, you spent first 4.5 years of your life in St. Patrick's on Navan Road. Do you remember anything about that?
I have just memories that I was there 4.5 years, and yes, I was quite young.
Yes.
I think my memories are more from the second institution I went to.
Which we're coming to now yet. Okay, you were taken at 4.5 years of age to St. Philomenia's Orphanage in Slorgan in Dublin, and you spent the next 5 years of your life there.
That's correct.
How did you get on there, Felix? What was it like there for you?
It was brutal. And remember that for 2 years after, none had molested me during the bathing time of bath. We used to all gather at the stairs, wait to take a turn in these tin tubs, and the big group of kids would all be naked, waiting to go in. There'd be maybe 7 or 8 nuns. There'd be tin tubs we brought into, and this nun was playing with me down below. And I ran out frightened, and she picked up a broom and banged the back of my head. I spent 2 years in hospital. I got the scars on the back of the head, as you can see there. And I was 5 years of age, and I had, I couldn't remember anything. I remember going to the hospital, no memory in the hospital for 2 years. And then I woke up one day, they took me straight back, brought me back to the institution.
And Felix, I know you said before you were a vaccine trial baby when you were in there, weren't you? Yeah. And that affected you physically?
Well, no one knows the long term of vaccines. Some children died during the vaccines that were tried out. The government originally said there were 2. The church said there were 3. But the Commission of Inquiry said that there were 13 that they know of. 13 trials on vulnerable children. There was no consent. The nuns took the money. And experimental vaccines were tried on infants, us, up to the age of 9 or 10. So they were doing diphtheria, polio, and other things. And they were doing the multiple, which was unusual at the time. They were doing the multiple vaccines, 4 shots in one. So they needed guinea pigs. So of course you go to vulnerable children, and the nuns, you give them a couple of thousand, and the nuns said there's a group of children out of wedlock or whatever, illegitimate. You had no permission, then you experimented on. And the consequences that we know that some of the children got very ill. We know some of the children died. This is reality. The Commission has said this, Commission of Inquiry into the vaccines. It didn't do a thorough job, but it has compared.
How affected, Felix? Do you know how you didn't walk for a number of years?
Yes, I had a problem that I couldn't walk. I had to be dragged almost everywhere. I couldn't physically walk, so I'd done something to the lower part of my legs. And it might be early polio. I didn't have polio as far as I know from some of the medical records I saw. But I couldn't walk, so I had to be taken everywhere, dragged along really. And then later on, then I slowly learned to walk. So I have memories of that. I remember them teaching me how to walk, and I was 4.5, 5.
So you were 5 years in Stillorgan, and then you were taken to St. Joseph's Industrial School in Tralee.
Industrial school. Industrial school like this place.
Yep.
This is also St. Joseph's Industrial School. Industrial school is you work. You're 9 years of age. It's there. They make bread, furniture, tailoring, shoemaking, cobbling, all that. There was a working farm, and you worked there.
And at the young age of 14, you were hired out by the Christian Brothers to a farmer in Dingle, weren't
That's
you?
correct. In Ballyferriter. I was sent out to a farm in Ballyferriter. That was a guest house, and at the time, they were doing the movie Ryan's Daughter. They were finishing Ryan's Daughter, and I hated the environment there because the farm and other Christian Brothers who used there, I was being raped there, and by the Christian Brothers, and by the farmer. Yes, that owned the place. So one day they all went off to Ballyferriter, which is the next town. Ballyferriter, yeah. Ballyferriter, to go and watch the filming, Ryan's Daughter, yeah. And the place was empty. So I thought that's my means to escape. I don't know where to go, but I ran from there, ran down the road. I got about maybe a mile down the road, and I was trying to stop a car. But this bus, what you call it, German bus, what's it called, VW camper van bus, the old one, stopped. The door opened to the side, and people dragged me into the bus. They were actually the crew of Ryan's Daughter. And they were more than generous to me. It says, "Where are you going, mate?" They were English. And I was like, "Who are these people?" So I'm in here. There's about 7 or 8 of them inside, through the driver. And they said, "Relax, where do you want to go?" And I immediately said, "Dublin." Now, I'd never been anywhere in my life. So I was all the time looking. They're going to catch me or something, thinking this. But anyway, we got to Dublin, and they were the crew that were dismantling the sets and doing the sets of Ryan's Daughter. And they were staying in Dublin. So it was the weekend. So they go back and forth. Right. And when you got to Dublin, you ended up in the boys' club? No, I ended up, the crew actually got me a job in a hotel called the North Coast Hotel in Portmarnock. Oh, right, okay. And Mrs. Nyland owned that place, and it was a place I could stay for nothing and be fed, which was heaven to me. Yes. And they needed a boy to wash pots and pans and pick glasses up in the bar. So I did that. Mrs. Nyland took a shine to me. And then she said, come September, she didn't ask me anything about my life. She was just knew that I was alone. I was then 14. And she said she'd like to get me into a catering college, which is what I wanted to be. Calbrew Street. In Calbrew Street. And I got in on a scholarship there. How I did is beyond me, but I think they all took sympathy on me. And I ended up there. And then the college said I couldn't work and go to college. I was one or the other. And I decided I'd go to college. So then there was arrangement made for me to go into a place called the Boys Hostel, the Boys Club, owned by Archbishop Quaid's Club, built for boys from this institution and similar institutions to mine. And that was on Little Street near the Mater Hospital. Near the Mater Hospital. And I was there for 3.5 years. Right. And some horrific things happened to you there. But before we go there, because we're here in front of our Tain, Felix, I know you were never resident here, but you know a lot about this building. Yes, I do. So while we're here, just it's interesting to me, you see this bottom floor here for a start. What were the different floors for, Felix? This was the biggest, practically the biggest industrial school in Ireland. And the most infamous, one of the most infamous. So the dining room would seat in one sitting 830 children, boys, at one sitting. One sitting. Right. And the other, so there'd been this whole floor here, right? Practically, it ran through the whole thing, yes. And so that was an enormous thing. Plus, there was a huge farm here. Yes. So the industrial school. In addition to this was built by Cardinal Cullen. And it was built it opened in 1870. And the first 3 boys were brought here. At a given year, there was 800 plus boys here. And by the time it closed in 1969, there were 211 boys, and they literally just put them out. Many of the boys that were here didn't necessarily come from the Magdalene laundries and didn't come from orphanages. They were sent through the courts. Through the courts. So 90% of the boys that were here were sent through the courts here. So there's a distinction. But this was for very minor offences. For minor offences you wouldn't bring anyone up on. and
Any
excuse at all, they were here. So this is really a remand centre, misused, run by the Christian Brothers, and brutality here was unbelievable.
Now, Felix, you did come after you did come here and visit the boys sometimes.
I
did.
It did indeed, yes, because I had friends. I've been inside this building and the building over there and the farm and stuff. Yes,
right. And that second floor, Felix, would have been the dormitories. There were 5 dormitories.
Yes,
with big rooms with about 150 boys in each and more.
Yes.
And what was the top floor then, Felix?
The same.
The same.
Yeah. Remember, you're talking about in a year. The highest number was 1949, when there were 820 children. That's a lot of children.
Yes.
And remember, the Christian Brothers, there was between 50 to 75 Christian Brothers that ran the place. But then there were people they hired, like
lay people.
The lay people that they hired, who were equally as brutal as the brothers were. Yeah. And then the older boys, then it was like that book that I referred to earlier on, that famous one about the island, the boys stranded.
Lord of the Flies.
Lord of the Flies. So life here was survival. The older boys would pick on the younger boys, both physically and sexually. Yeah. I mean, because that was happening to them.
Struggle for survival.
Yes.
Now, Felix, some of the punishments in there were so horrific it's hard to talk about them. But there were children hung up on hooks in there, flogged, weren't there?
Yes, and there were children that were stripped naked on the benches and publicly whipped in the yard, publicly humiliated and whipped. This was common in many institutions, not just here. Yeah. This was part of the cruelty of the Christian Brothers. Yeah. And by the way, a fact that a lot of people don't get, raping a child or whipping a child naked was part of control the Christian Brothers used to control children. Yes. This was part of their DNA of the Christian Brothers, was to humiliate, break the boy, humiliate him every way possible, physically raping the boy, whipping him almost to death. That's documented.
Humiliation and breaking them. That was the main.
That was, yes.
Wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Felix, we're now going to move to Eccles Street for the next part of the video here.
Okay.
Is that okay with you?
That's grand, yes.
Okay. So here we are, Felix, in Eccles Street.
Yes.
64 to 65 Eccles Street. The Boys Club, founded by Archbishop John Charles McQuaid.
Correct.
And this is territory you're very familiar with.
Yes, 3.5 years.
3.5
years.
First of all, I'm mesmerized by this here, Felix. What are these?
Well, okay. Well, as you can see, if I may, as you can see, they're mythological.
Yes.
On a Catholic institution, stunning. The middle one here, the one underneath the oval here, that's Bacchus, the god of wine. And the 2 little children, one pressing the wine and the other one at the feet of Bacchus. Well, that speaks volumes. Boys Club. And then we have mythological figures above. That was part of this building. But of course, this was originally built in 1700. McQuaid acquired this in the mid-60s, in the mid-1960s, 64, 65. He bought them he bought 2 houses, 64 here and 65 there, and then converted them. And mostly the boys from Artane ended up here. This was a halfway house for Artane. So there was upwards of 30 boys here, from 64, say. It's also the place McQuaid encouraged trainee clerics to come and befriend the boys and take the boys out for drinking. I mean, the 14, 15, take them out for drinking, food, and other entertainment.
Felix, that was your room up there you were saying a minute ago?
Just above the door was my room. It was a bedroom of 4 or 5, depending. There were 5 beds there.
So Felix, let's go down to basics here. What went on inside those walls?
This was,
from your experience,
these were boys. Well, this was clearly off limits to women, unless you consider nuns women, but we didn't. This was for boys and trainee priests who were encouraged to befriend the boys, take the boys out for drinking, eating, and other things, sexual things. Yes, it was quite common. Original name of this was called the Boys Club. Later on, they didn't like that name. They changed it to St. Mary's Hostel for Boys.
Our Ladies Hostel.
Our Ladies Hostel for Boys. Changed, but there were 2 buildings. And so there was activity here. This is all day long. The boys that were here would have to go to work to get up 7, 8 in the morning, have their breakfast, be in work by 8, half 8, 9 o'clock, and then come back and then give a portion of the wages to this place. And then until a flat or apartment could be found for them.
Did McQuaid himself come here often?
He came here very regularly. He was the patron of this. He was the head of the committee here. He ran, this was his, he owned this, the parish owned this. The Dublin Dice, McQuaid was the head of this. It's on his letterhead.
So it was a club for?
Yes, there was a disco in here. Downstairs was the games room, billiards, poker. There was a cafe downstairs for the boys to bring friends. Girls were not allowed here.
And the visiting priests and trainee priests would come here.
Yes, in
to
civvies.
exploit these young
Yes,
boys.
yes, very much so.
You're talking rape here, sexual abuse, sexual exploitation.
Yes, remember that the boys come out of institutions.
Yes.
We didn't know anything better. So the same happened here with me. But McQuaid encouraged trainee clerics to come here, take the boys out, and many of the clerics, we know this, you've read the paper, you've seen the article I've sent you, including Father Smith came
Is
here.
that Brendan Smith, the pedophile?
And the priest that ran this was Brendan Sweeney, who ran this. Before him was Con Houlihan, Father Con Houlihan. But again, there's been many allegations made against these priests, to this day confirmed.
And Father Michael Cleary came here as
He
well?
came here quite regularly. He came here as an excuse to go across to the Loretto Convent across the way, which is a girls' place. The girls used to stay there. It was a place, where wealthy families would educate their daughters. Cleary would come here with other clerics. They tend to sing to us, but really everybody knew he was here to go across the street. But he was an exception in that, where most of the clerics that came here for one purpose was to meet a boy, get familiar with a boy, treat a boy to ice cream or fish and chips, get a few drinks with the boy. Remember, we were only 14, 15, 16 years of age. And then take him out and have sex with him. And this is well documented. It's not something I'm saying. This is documented. I've sent you that article.
So these boys who went through all this was the only world they knew, Felix.
Yes.
This was life for them.
Yes.
They knew nothing else.
I knew nothing else. This was the life for 18 years. We accepted it.
Years.
Yes, yes.
Did McQuaid take you out?
Yes.
Did Brendan Smith take you out?
No, yes and no, but not sexually. Took me out.
Did Michael Cleary take you out?
No, Michael Cleary, he was into girls across the way.
He was into girls, okay.
But remember that the next Archbishop of Dublin, Dermot Martin was a junior training as a priest. He was a member of this club. He used to come most days here. And Dermot Martin befriended some of the boys. And Dermot Martin, when he was ordained a priest, celebrated his first mass here. There's a church above. The nuns built a church above, so he came here. So he had his first mass in a sense when he was confirmed as a priest. He had it here, so he was coming here for 5, 6, 7 years. So, and he became the future Archbishop of Dublin.
Felix, can I ask you, looking back on it now, how do you feel? Standing here in front of this.
Well,
how do you feel?
Obviously, you don't suppress these type of memories.
No.
I say to when people ask me, and I use the word rape. As a child, you can never forget when you're raped. When you rape a child, you live with that forever. The pleasure can be for them 5 minutes, but it's a life sentence for us that are raped. That's the reality. And you never forget it. Yes, I can be good humoured and all that.
And it wasn't just once, it was constant.
It was constant, yes, because you had the pressure of these people coming on you. These people,
you knew
the pressure, you knew it was going to happen. And you knew when they came here and they'd be nice to you, that there was something you had to give at the end of it. And these were lonely men. These were lonely priests, And of course, you don't say no to a priest. The priests ran the country. They ran these places. They ran us. We didn't know anything better.
You didn't know to do that because you thought this was normal life.
Yes, exactly, yes. We didn't know anything better. We didn't know, I'd no mother and fathers, no older brothers. We just accepted this. And by the way, we didn't think what was going on with other boys. we always thought, oh, maybe it's just me. It's only later on when you meet these boys who are now men that you learn what happened to me happened to them. It's everybody. And you read recently, a few years ago, up to 2021, there was a huge article in the Irish Mirror or something about Brendan Smith coming here, another priest coming here.
The paedophile.
That's the
But there was
paedophile.
another Brendan Smith, wasn't there?
Well, there was a few others.
But you're talking about the
I've thought about
Brendan Smith paedophile.
the priest that ran this, Brendan Sweeney.
Brendan Sweeney.
And it was Brendan Sweeney and I. Brendan Sweeney told me McQuaid was dying. It was Brendan Sweeney who took me to meet McQuaid before he died in the hospital. So in a sense, I was the last person to see McQuaid die. And I went there. That's another story.
So Felix, what was the last thing McQuaid said to you? Can you tell us that?
Well, yes. When went to see him, he was feeble. He didn't look anything like McQuaid. Yes, he was kind of a. It was a kind of a another.
That would be 1973.
It was like a white dress he had on him and stuff. He was in the bed. Yeah, there were hospital people, but they all had to leave the room. Father Sweeney came in with me, and I came in. I went to the other end of the room by the window. McQuaid was in the bed there. He looked I didn't recognize him. He looked very feable. He looked different. Of course, he was dying.
He had 2 heart attacks.
Well, I don't know what he had. He probably died from abuse and guilt, as far as I was concerned. Anyway, he for some reason wanted to shake my hand or whatever, or beg forgiveness. And I recoiled. I pulled away from him. And then he died, and Sweeney ran out quickly and shouted the whole way for the nurse to come. And then I was ushered out of the room. And then everyone came in, knelt around the bed, praying and crying. I had no sympathy for this man because what he'd done to me and others.
Felix, thank you very much for your story and all those 4 institutions.
You're welcome.
Oh dear.
No, that's life.
It's life.
Well, no, these things need to be dealt with properly.
Yes.
And, it's something.
They have to be got out there.
They had to get out there, and it's a way of dealing with my demons. And I think the truth should go out there, and people should know what these people were.
Yeah. Ireland is in need of a lot of healing.
It needs integrity. It needs people to come forward and say what went on. There's no point glossing it over. You can't perfume what went on. Pedophilia was part of the priest culture here. We need to wake up. It wasn't just me. It was thousands of women. It was single women. It was the children. All the children in these institutions had mothers that were Magdalene women.
Yep. Yes.
And the children we committed no crime. None.
Purely innocent.
So the church bundled us into these places, then took advantage of us. Most children in these places were raped. That's the reality. And remember, in these institutions, within 5 years, 30% or more children afterwards, 5 years later on, committed suicide or ended up in drugs or drink or prison.
That's the only route they could go.
That's the reality. That's the reality.
Felix, can I have a hug?
Of course you can. Of course you can. Of course you can.
And thank you very much
You're
for
very welcome.
all your relating to us what happened to you in there and bringing it to our attention and getting it out there.
A few minutes doesn't tell the story.
No.
That's the thing. But it's a way to start.
So thank you all for watching, and until we meet again, namaste.